Hello, welcome to this edition of R&B Reviews. I'm Rob.
I'm Brendan.
And our guest today is...
I'm Dave.
Hey Dave, welcome back to the show.
Thank you, Rob, for having me again.
No problem. Alright, today we're going to be reviewing A Haunting in Connecticut. So here's what the movie is about. The movie is about a family in Connecticut whose older son has cancer and they have to drive hours to a hospital to treat him. But one day while driving back, the mother notices a house near the hospital that's for sale, and she figures, hey, it's near the hospital, why don't we live here while he gets his treatment? But once they move in, the son notices very strange things about the house. He sees figures, shadows, and a young boy in the house. And everyone in his family, his father, his mother, his siblings, his cousins, all think that he's just hallucinating because of the treatment. But he is determined to prove to his family that the house is haunted. When I walked into the movie, I was really expecting some really great scares, but in the end, I wasn't really scared at all. It was full of, in my opinion, it was full of cliches like that I could see coming, like, you know, is that you? Is that you over there? And then when that kept happening, I'm like, okay, something scary is gonna happen, and then bam, it happened. And I just didn't get any surprises out of the movie, and I thought the dialogue felt very unnatural, and the other cliches that were in the movie were there's a hot chick taking a shower and the ghost eventually kind of messes with her, and there's a minister character that's, you know, feels like it came out of The Exorcist that was just thrown in there to try to fix up the house, and there is a character in the film that takes an axe and starts chopping down doors and stuff that I felt came out of The Shining. You know, I just felt like the film was full of cliches and it didn't really add anything, and I really wasn't scared by it, but overall, my verdict on the film, I've never used this before on the show, and I don't think anyone else has, but I'm going to have to say snuff it. I don't think it's the best horror film that came out recently, and I don't think it's worth seeing. So I'm going to have to say snuff it. Dave?
I'm going to have to say probably rent it. But
really?
Preferably, if you can get it at the library instead of renting it at the video store, it would probably be better if you didn't have to pay for it. But yeah, I'm going to say rent it, even though I agree with you that a lot of stuff was like... It copied off of a lot of other horror movies,
exactly.
like The Shining and maybe The Grudge, perhaps, with the shower scene and all that.
And plus, the son is seeing stuff, and his family doesn't believe him, and they think he's hallucinating. We've seen that in a lot of other movies before.
Yeah, and the thing about like people, they're always asking the other person, "Is that you? Is that you?" And then they turn around, and it's the ghost or whatever. You see that in a lot of horror movies nowadays too.
And you're still saying rent it with this movie?
Well, it's considering the storyline was really good, and the part of like the old black and white footage of when the son is seeing them do the seance. I feel the characters were pretty good.
This minister character that we've seen in stuff like Exorcist, where he's thrown in just to try to fix things in it. Another problem I had with this movie was when there's a possibility that the son's cancer might actually kill him, his father, turns out he has a drinking problem. I thought that whole thing was thrown in haphazardly and it didn't add anything.
I mean, with the drinking problem thing, it was like hard to tell like what was the relationship between the mom and the dad, if they were like divorced or they were just like taking a break from each other or whatever. It was kind of, and it took away from the whole storyline, I think, really.
Okay, but you're still saying rent it on DVD.
But I'd say rent it on DVD, but like I said, get it at the library.
Okay, and Brendan, what do you think?
I would probably have to say rent it.
Rent it?
Rent it, yeah. I thought it was a pretty good ghost story. I thought the strongest part of the plot was probably the backstory of why the house was haunted and the ghosts and everything like that. But I do see what you're saying with the Hollywood cliches. I mean, the writers, I thought they had a pretty good ghost story, but you know, they managed to, I think, water it down with just cliches, meaningless characters. I mean, like the two younger kids in the movie are useless. The character of the priest is purely there for exposition. You
exactly.
know, you know, the main character just sort of comes across this guy who happens to be an expert on paranormal activity, and I thought that was really lame, and it really pissed me off when I was watching the movie. Although the character is sympathetic and whatnot because he's dying of cancer, but I don't give a rat's ass. He was just there to give us exposition, and I thought, you know, the characters should have gone off on their own and learned this stuff, or sort of come across the information better. It almost seemed like this is what they came up with in like a later draft of the script to get the exposition out. I thought connecting the paranormal with the cancer treatment, I thought that was very interesting. And I think that's something that maybe could be explored in other movies. I saw all the references you were talking about in the movie. I sort of felt like there was poltergeist references, like the shower scene's a bit of a Psycho reference. The Shining one immediately jumped out to me. But think about it: anytime you see a character in a horror movie with an axe, now you immediately think of The Shining.
Yeah.
The Shining. What I think the Shining worked so well is because you only saw the ghosts through the character's eyes. With this movie, they went down the atypical Hollywood horror movie route. Like they had a manual where they show the ghosts in flashes and reflections and stuff like that. And only you, the audience, see them. The characters at the time don't see them, and it's always very loud. And it makes you jump in your seat. It would have been much more interesting if they would have dropped the music soundtrack and tried to find a more creative way to reveal a ghost to us, as opposed to doing it the typical, look, it's a ghost, loud sound effects. But sadly, it does sort of succumb to all the Hollywood conventions, like you were saying.
Yeah.
But it does have a solid story, I think. The acting's pretty good. They get you connected to the characters pretty well. And, aside from a few kind of big pitfalls the movie has, I thought it was overall a pretty serviceable ghost story.
Okay.
And we don't see too many ghost stories these days. Usually it's just torture movies and remakes.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's go ahead and give the audience our verdict. So, Brennan, what is your verdict?
I am saying rent it.
Okay, Dave, what's your verdict?
I'm saying rent it.
Okay, well, even though it sounds like we're in the narrow margins of total agreement, I'm gonna have to say snuff it. I was very disappointed with this movie. I wasn't scared by it. I could see stuff coming, and I thought it was filled with cliches we've seen before. So, thanks. So we want to thank you very much for watching, and if you want to leave any feedback, perhaps you like the movie or you agree with us or whatnot, go ahead and leave us any feedback or any comments. We greatly appreciate it. And we'll see you on the next edition of R&B Reviews.